Trump administration made a big claim that Harvard, you no longer are going to get your federal funding because you have not done what we've said you're supposed to. And that was to the tune, let's hear this dollar figure, to the tune of $2 billion in your federal tax dollars that were going to fund Harvard. Well,
that's right. So this is a freeze of actually $2.2 billion. So you left off about $200 million there, Logan.
2.2?
Yeah, $2.2 billion. They were originally looking up to $9 billion in freezing. That is still under review. We'll see what happens there. But this comes after the Department of Education on April 11th sent a letter outlining governance and leadership reforms, merit-based hiring reform, merit-based admissions reform, international admission reform, and viewpoint diversity in admissions and hiring, as well as reforming programs with egregious records of antisemitism or other bias. Well, Harvard late yesterday, announced that they will not be complying with these
They will not bow down
reforms
to the federal government that was giving them $2.2 billion. Now, if you were to guess how much Harvard was getting, you probably could think, yeah, they're getting maybe tens of millions of dollars. I don't know if there's anyone who was thinking that their amount of federal funding for Harvard, not a cheap place to go to college.
That's right. It's about $57,000 a year for just tuition. When you add in
$200,000+,
lodging, you add in the other fees associated with it, you're up to around $80-something thousand a year.
Gigantic endowment.
Right, $53 billion, the largest education endowment in the world, I believe.
And Harvard has stated that this actually would be worth somewhere north of $9 billion if defunded, of course, maybe over the length of time. Did you think that's where your taxpayer dollars were going? These are those moments where we are actually happy not only to see the Doge department, to see places going in to clean up government waste, because let's just be honest. I got no beef with Harvard. I got no issues with Harvard. Many of our friends went to Harvard. However, I don't believe that anyone thinks that $2 billion of our federal funding should be going to Harvard. And of course, now they've made it easy because they said, you know what we're going to let happen? Anti-Semitism. We're going to let it keep rising on our campuses. And if, obviously those are the new rules from the Trump administration. So you know what? Even without this, I think it was time to relook at how we are funding these universities at this scale.
Harvard responded in multiple ways. Their attorneys sent a letter to the Department of Education, but we also have a statement that was posted on X from Harvard University's official account with a quote from President Alan Garber. No government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. This is the university that is taking billions of dollars from the federal government and is saying, you can't tell us what to do with that money. There's also a quote from the Department of Education and the General Services Administration, who put out this statement detailing the freeze of the $2.2 billion in the grants. And it says, Harvard's statement today reinforces the troubling entitlement mindset that is endemic in our nation's most prestigious universities and colleges. That federal investment does not come with the responsibility to uphold civil rights laws. The federal government is saying, if we're giving you all this money, you have to uphold civil rights laws. You have to protect the members of your academic community that are being targeted by pro-Hamas terrorists. We saw how bad it got. And they're trying to say, we're doing things, but we're going to do it our way. We're not going to be beholden to the government making sure that we are following and upholding the civil rights of Jewish students on our campus. That is a serious problem.
Well, let's throw it back then.
Right.
Let's throw it back. Of course, you said this was the previous president of Harvard.
That's right.
They had to leave because of obvious reasons. The pressure was on because of these kind of conversations. This is with Elise Stefanik as well. This happened, last year?
Yes.
A year and a half ago or so? Take a listen.
And Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment, yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted as an individual, targeted at an individual.
It's targeted at Jewish students, Jewish individuals. Do you understand your testimony is dehumanizing them? Do you understand that dehumanization is part of anti-Semitism? I will ask you one more time. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment, yes or no?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric.
And is it anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric when it crosses into conduct that amounts to bullying, harassment, intimidation, that is actionable conduct, and we do take action.
I forgot. I think I blocked this one out, I'll be honest, because of how disturbing and disgusting it really was. I mean, if you just take out, does it violate calling for the genocide of Jews? Does it violate your rules for bullying and harassment? It can, depending on the context. That was the world we are living in. Sadly, it hasn't gotten a whole lot better, but the Trump administration has gone in and said, let's try to help. Let's try to make this better. Of course, we're finding out more and more information about what your tax dollars are going to. We've been talking about that for decades, that your tax dollars are going to things that you maybe don't approve of. Of course, we all knew there's federal funding of universities. Look, I worked for a university last year. I know there's funding that comes from that. I'm not, just saying no one should be receiving any federal funding if you're in the education system. But do I think that Harvard, one of the biggest, with a $200,000 plus, that's just the base to go there for 4 years, needs, with billions and tens of billions of dollars in endowment, do they need $2 billion from our taxpayer funding? You got to remember how much a billion is.
Right.
To then get to your head to $2.2 billion. It's an unfathomable amount of money that we are just handing over to Harvard and saying, good luck, have fun. And we've been doing that probably for years.
That's right. And one of the facts that we were talking about in our pre-meeting is that, if you were just to decide to count to $1 billion, just you, Logan, is going to this is now your life's goal. It's going to take you a while to count to $1 billion, just one of them. Would take over 31 years. And that's assuming...
That's without sleeping.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's without eating, sleeping. You couldn't make
that's just
it there.
To go 1, 2, and then count 2.
Well, I mean, maybe you could pick up the pace a little bit. That was pretty slow.
Then you
have
could get to... But if you tried to even just sound out $1 billion or let's say, whatever it is, $1 less, it's an absurd amount.
999,999,999. It takes more than a second is what you're trying to get to.
Exactly.
It's a large number.
Big dollars.
This is $2.2 billion going to Harvard, and Harvard's trying to argue, hey, federal government, you have to give us money, but you can't say there's any strings attached. There's a reason why universities like Hillsdale, and there's not many of them in this country, but they don't take any federal dollars. Why? Because they said, we don't want the federal government to have a say in what we teach here. Yeah. They admit that. They know that if we take federal money,
that's part of the deal.
Then they are going to be able to shape the education at our university. Harvard now is trying to say, how dare you give us billions of dollars and then try to speak into how we protect Jewish students on campus after what we've seen for over a year and a half at this point, after the October 7th massacres, the attempted genocide in Israel, and the way that people on those campuses responded. They're trying to say, you can't tell us how to run our own university, but you have to give us this money. It's ridiculous.
I think this is, again, another eye-opening moment for America as you realize that you're not talking about a few $1 million that's going to these universities. I imagine if it's going to Harvard, then you assume that Ivy League schools in general are probably receiving similar funding to the tune of billions and billions of dollars.
The university at Harvard has a $53.2 billion endowment. So that is their investment fund, their cash reserves. It's enormous. And a lot of times universities, they use that money. They take the interest and they're able to use that for funding in ways but it's a non-taxed pile of money because of their tax exempt status.
It's tax day. So.
And here's the problem. America writ large whether it be our government, our institutions, aren't living within their means. They expect the American people to, but they're not. They're saying, and this is what is so ironic to me, is that why their endowment can't save them is because of many of the donations that are given to the endowment are for specific things and have strings attached, like naming rights, certain scholarship funds, certain buildings to be built. So the money they have has strings attached from private donors. But they're trying to say that the money that the federal government gives you can't have strings attached about how to protect the American citizens that are going to this university and that are being targeted because they're Jewish. That is so outlandish, and that they don't see the irony here. That the reporting is like, well, the endowment can't really save them because they can't just use that money. How about live within your means and not be so beholden to the federal government's checkbook that you can't operate. You can't be an elite university without getting this money. If you're a, quote, private institution, you're not. You're quasi-private, if that at best. You're more like a public university that is trying to claim this banner of privatized institution.
Look, we are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Secular program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.